Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another session of Heroes to Heroes. My name is Gilda Hefsiba Adobuno, and I'll be the one anchoring today's session. I am an arrow at Trustees of True Riches. For those of us joining us for the first time and wondering what is Trustees of True Riches, well, Trustees of True Riches is an initiative envisioned in 2004 by Pastor Tunde Bakare, presently convened under a new focus by Oluwakayode Adigun, popularly known as Pake. The main objective of the new TOTR is to empower the youth in diverse ways of life. We are seeking the welfare and prosperity of the next generations of leaders. In pursuit of this goal, we seek the most effective approaches of networking virtue and value shops that can deliver sustainable benefits to youth in Nigeria and world at large. So today we have an amazing, a wonderful guest speaker with us. He is also a fellow in Trustees of True Riches. He is married with 3 kids. He has 30 years work experience picked up from 3 banks, namely Diamond Bank, Broad Bank, and FCMB, where from he retired in June 2020 as the regional director in Lagos. He has an extensive experience in banking spanning operations, retail, commercial, and corporate banking. OC graduated in law from the University of Calabar and practiced law in Lagos, one of the few lawyers who hates to argue. He also has an MBA in marketing and has attended several leadership courses within and outside Nigeria. OC is a seasoned and God fearing leader, and he is deeply fascinated by the psychology of the human behavior. Since leaving the banking sector, he set up a practice with 2 of his friends as financial consultants. He is also keen interests. He also has key interest in telecom, technology, and digital television. With this being said, please help me welcome our guest speaker today, Mr. Oliver C. Opara.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here today to share my life experience in the last 58 plus years. I'm going to try to compress those number of years under 50 minutes or max of 1 hour, so you will bear with me. I have chosen a topic that reads the road less traveled. I should say from the onset that I am not the creator of that title or the phrase. It was actually created by a poet named Scott Peck. I just thought it is apt for what I have to discuss today and tends to summarize the route I have taken in my life. Hence, I've chosen that topic with you. If I have to make an explanation, it will be that the road less traveled means the choices that we have to make in life. At every point in time, we have 2 choices: the one that is easy and the one that is difficult and filled with thorns. So in my life, I have chosen the road less traveled, which represents the difficult route you can take in life, the route that is filled with thorns and challenges along the way. Once you've chosen that path, you can't get out of it. So, like I've been introduced, I have a family, married with 3 children. But before then, of course, I came from a family, my mom and my dad, both deceased now, unfortunately, and with 7 other siblings, with 5 of them remaining. Like some of my colleagues that had appeared here before, this route that we have taken is when you go on a journey and you arrive at a point, if you look back, you will see a couple of things that happened in your years. So I'm going to share in details some of them, and I'm expecting that this whole experience is educational. So when it sounds like I'm beating my drum sometimes, please do not take that to heart. It's basically what I intend to do here is to explain the challenges that I have faced in my life and how I have been able to overcome them, the thinking behind what has happened at each and every point in time, and the early influences in my life to get to this point I am today. So that family is made up of my dad and my mom. And I should say, I'm going to focus more on my mom because I lost my dad very early in life when I had just finished my primary five. And my mom died just last year. So that gap of several years will explain why most of the experiences I have will be predominantly around my mom, except that my recollection of my dad was of a strict disciplinarian, which as a child you will object to it then, but as you grow up, you will understand why those things were necessary. So that family of seven children, of which I'm the fifth, three male and five, sorry, three male, that will be eight, three female children and five male. Of today, we have lost the first one and as well as the last one. So we have one female left today, and the four males are still alive. Now, why I have chosen to bring up this incident of the clean takara fist ball, we summarize. Most of us, when we're growing up, we do not understand what our parents go through. So because it was a very, I mean, if it was in the present day, we'll probably be on President Tinubu's social register. That's as bad as it was. I had one of my colleagues that presented last month was talking about carrying water on his head from the stream back to the house. That exactly was my own experience as well. But the clinched Akara ball stands clearly in my heart because on one of that fateful day when we had gathered for breakfast at home, my mom served us a breakfast of akamu or ogi, as it is called here. We requested for akara, and she said there was no akara. We were just going to drink ogi, and if you drink ogi alone, you're practically drinking water. So we, the children, looked at each other and clenched our fists, representing akara balls, and we were eating it and drinking the ogi. And for some reason, that completely infuriated my mom. She broke down and cried. We were children having fun, but here we were making fun of her poor situation. That's basically what it was that we were doing unknowingly. And we were having fun. There was no akara. We wanted to eat breakfast and we were just eating ogi and using our fists to chew it as akara and putting the pap into our mouths. And she broke down very, very badly because she was doing her very best. By this time, our dad was dead, and she was doing her very best to bring up that number of children, and we were making fun of her. I don't know why I still recall it today, but except that it goes to show that as children, we probably need to pay attention. And in later years, I still look back to see how my mom was going from Owerri, if anybody knows Owerri very well, a village in Owerri, to River State, which would take nearly a day to complete, to go buy wares, Gary, to bring back to Owerri to sell. And all of this time she had to trek. That's like a 5 hours journey to and fro to bring food to be able to put on the table for the children. And we were making fun of her. So when my mom passed last year, when I now grew older, I have now become able to see clearly what challenges she faced. No formal education, no job, and here you were training that number of children and doing it successfully. Now, that left a point in my head clearly that you have to work hard, work hard, work hard to succeed. And you have to be honest to be able to make it in life. And if you have that number of children, then you can't really not afford to rest. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the other thing that I recall clearly was that I went to a seminary, and even several years after now, I still remember that very vividly because in the village, the only thing you had was the priest or the pastor as your role model. And that underscores the fact that role models are very, very important in life. And because that was the only person in the village that we could look up to beyond the village chief, so it was not unusual that one would seek to go to seminary to go and seek education and probably be a priest. Now, again, I would say the seminary was far from my town, unlike what happens these days when children are carried to school. They would take us to the motor park, put you in the car, and tell the driver the location you were going to. And the driver would take you, you never knew where you were going. He would take you to that point and drop and ask you, show you that you've reached your destination. Could you just imagine if that was today? You would put your child in a vehicle going to, say, Delta State from Imo State, say, when you reach this place, stop and drop him. You probably will lose that child. That's how it was in those days. Everybody trusted everybody. It is not the way it is now. But why do I remember the seminary years very vividly? Because that was my first venture outside the home, and those experiences went a very long way to guide what I became later in life. The seminary was where I learned how to use, and sorry, I should talk about my arrival on the first day, what I call the rude onboarding. When we arrived at the school the first day, and we had to, after our dinner in the evening, one of the students asked me to wash his plate. And coming from a home where each person did his own chores, it was a bit strange to me. And I asked him why. He slapped me. Hear that? This was a person who thought the seminary was the best place you could be, where people were nurtured, young, good people. And I was being slapped on my first day in the seminary. I haven't forgotten it. I still remember the guy that slapped me. Of course, I have moved on from that. But again, it shows that as you leave from home, you need to be prepared from what you have to face. Now, the seminary, the way it was structured in those days, there were very strict schedules. There was strict wake up time. You have to wake up time, you have to wake up on time, and you have to follow strict instructions. You prepare your bed quickly. You have 15 minutes to take your bath and dress up and rush up to the chapel for prayers. And you must follow everything strictly from prayers. You go to refectory to have your breakfast, and breakfast, we were taught how to use cutleries for the first time. Of course, at home, nobody bothered with those as a boy from the village. And I specifically talked about elocution classes here, and some people probably won't realize, won't know what this means. At 5 p.m. every evening, we were given 15 minutes to come out in the open. You took any book that you liked, and you would come out in the open and you read as loud as you could. We were practicing how to pronounce the words. We were practicing how to read. We were practicing how to develop our vocal cavities. And that experience for a very young person stood out very clearly in my head. And the next thing I recall too was a magna silencia. This was a period of great silence. So if some of you here who know me will wonder why I drift into prolonged silence sometime, that was because of the training that was acquired in the seminary. And this meant that from period when you finish your dinner and the evening prep, that was about 8 or 7 to around 10 during lights out, you were not expected to talk. You were not expected to communicate with anybody. You were to maintain great silence all through. And that allow you to meditate, to pray, and to think clearly about who you want to be in life. Now, I will also remember my period in the seminary where I was the school secretary. School secretary will represent the what you will have today as a senior prefect in the school, the most important role you had to play. I was appointed a school secretary at some point when I was in secondary 3, 4, end of 3 and 4. Now, the school secretary was a very important role, but it had a challenge. Because you were an administrator, more or less in the school, you never had time to study. And you were going from the dormitory, check who was doing what, check to the classroom, whether people were studying, and going back to the priest to report and take instructions back to the students. And this was quite cumbersome. And you will be on this for nearly the entire day. You will miss some classes, you miss some prep. It was a bit too much for me. I was young and couldn't handle it. So at some point, I went to the school rector, which represented the head or the director or principal of the school, and tendered my resignation. That I asked for two things. One, give me special concession to study outside the when lights were out so that I would be able to catch up, because essentially I was a student and I wanted to be able to read and study to pass my exams, because there was no special exams for school secretaries. To my greatest surprise, he said no, that I was not expected to have privileges because I was a secretary, that the appointment of a secretary meant was very carefully done, and you were supposed to be able to combine the activities of the secretary and also your role as a student. And that if I chose to resign, effectively what I was doing was I was requesting to be allowed to leave the seminary, or to be asked to resign or to leave. So I didn't. I went back to my hostel, tried to devise some time how to study, and I studied without any special concessions, and I was able to pass out like in flying colors. Now, I said too curious for my own good. I used to ask a lot of questions. I couldn't understand the Bible because you had to study the Bible. I couldn't understand a couple of things, and I kept asking questions, asking questions, asking questions. Some doctrines that I was supposed to just accept, I wouldn't accept them. I kept asking questions. And at some point, the school said, well, okay, it appears you are not able to submit. And the best way for you would be to, I was advised that on completing my secondary school, I should leave the seminary. So we would say I was called, but I wasn't chosen. And that's how I left the seminary on graduation and came out into the wild outer world and have continued to float back. So that was the basis of my faith in God all the years in the seminary. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I talked about getting married, and I have a reason for saying this. I will assume that all of the fellows are already married, but the arrows and some younger people there are not married yet. It is very important that you make the best choice of a life partner, because you could opt out of marriage once you are married, but if you are going to get married, you need to be sure who you are getting married to. You need to be sure that your values in life correspond with that person's values. Otherwise, the rest part of your life is going to be filled with grief and agony. Because once you have a better half, then your life is going to be shared with that person. And if you don't share the same values or substantially the same values, because you expect that each individual is different, you are going to have problems. Most youth these days I see are concerned with the physical and it is the values, those internal things about that person that will now become what will raise you in life. So, but how do you find that person? It is a very difficult choice to make, especially because that very important decision in life is made early before you are knowledgeable enough. I mean, I will advise everybody to marry early. But if you're going to marry early, how do you ensure that you are not saddled with a partner that will be a burden on you over the years? I would say it's God. I can't find any other way to explain it. First of all, if you shun looking at the physical looks of that person to say what does fair, tall, typically, as everybody will say, you look for those intrinsic values that will endear you to that person. In my own case, I think I would say it was divine. I'm 25 years plus now. I'll be 26 years in marriage by May 2nd. Mine was divine in the sense that when I saw this person, I had always known her. I didn't know she was going to be my wife. I never thought about that. It wasn't in my mind. But one fateful day, when I looked and our eyes met, I knew right then that was the person that was made for me, and I proposed that day. Although she didn't say yes immediately, but that was the day we made our choice on getting married, and that has been a happily married life ever since. And I will put that to God, because when I look back now that I have grown and older, I don't know why I made that choice, because it could have been only God that led me to that, knowing who I was and knowing the shortcomings I had. That's only this person that would suit me. So that choice had to be made by God. Now, when I talk about raising a family, especially if you are working in a bank or such organizations where the demand for time is very severe, you would have to be very careful, because if family is the center of your life, then having children and raising them has to be a full-time job. And how do you combine that full-time job with not being available at home? In those days, you had to leave home around 5 a.m. or 6, latest going to work, and you were not going to come back till midnight or sometimes past midnight. So if you were not going to return early, how were you going to be able to perform your roles as a parent? So you need a wife who has to be dutiful. Dutiful. It has to be somebody who both of you must agree some sacrifices have to be made. It could be you, it could be her, but somebody must have more time to be able to devote to the children. If both of you are going to run after money to try and raise money, money is important. Nobody should argue that. But the children need time. You are never going to bring up children properly if you didn't devote some time, make sacrifices to them. So you must make that decision. Prayerfully ask God to show you who your wife would be or who your life partner would be. And then you open your mind up and take it off from there. Now, I talked about MBA enrolling and re-enrolling. I did my MBA when I was already working in a bank. It was quite difficult, but the steps I took were I had to approach my manager and said I was enrolling in MBA and I was going to need time. If you are going to work from 6 a.m. to 10, 12 midnight, when were you going to find time to enroll for a course that requires physical attendance sometimes? And to compound my own matter, I trained as a lawyer and I was rolling in MBA. So I had very serious challenges trying to cope. You are a typical lawyer, of which I was one of. Had challenges with maths, had challenges with numbers. Here I was now having to cope with statistics, financial accounting, and management accounting, and I was completely lost and out of my depth. So one fateful day in the class, I couldn't cope anymore. And I made up my mind. I said, hey, see, who is paying the fees here? It's me. If I wasn't coping, what would I do? I would just drop out and go home. So while class was going on, I was just playing this back in my mind. And I decided I gathered my books, put them in my bag, and walked out of the class. And as I was going, I said, I beg, may they no kill me. What is this? So I drove home. My wife was at home when I got home, and I told her I had left school. She said, why are you coming early? Because usually it will be a full day on Saturdays. I said, I am no longer going to do the program. She said, how? I said, I have left school. She said, no, you can't leave school. She said, so you are now a dropout. I said, no, I didn't drop out. I just left. She said, it means the same thing. So, well, whatever you want to call it, I am not going back to that class because it was difficult for me. She said, well, you are going back. And it was a bit surprising to me. I said, I am not going back. So we went back and forth, back and forth. And she said, okay, fine. If you choose not to go back, I won't eat until you go back. Because if you drop out, what are you going to tell your children when they have challenges in school that you were a dropout? I said, but this is MBA. She said, it doesn't make any difference. So I said, okay, that's your business. So I didn't go to close school. I didn't go back to school that day. And she kept her word. She didn't eat on that Saturday. She didn't eat on Monday. On Sunday. Then by Sunday evening, my elder brother came to the house, said my wife called to report me that I dropped out of school. I said, yes, I did. What's the problem? Say, well, she has sworn that she wasn't going to eat until you go back to school. So she didn't eat on Saturday. She didn't eat on Sunday. She didn't eat on Monday. The next classes was Tuesday. I knew that I had a problem on my hand. So I went back to school. I called the carpenter. I said, please build me a table so that I can study harder. I went back to school. I paid more attention. I was more focused. And when we completed, I passed statistics, I passed financial accounting, and I passed financial management. It was the same me that couldn't cope, that coped, because I saw that I had no way out. So that taught me that whatever you put your mind to, you will overcome. And Don't give up easily when challenges come. But I owe it to her because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do that. So, and as luck would have it, she's doing her PhD program right now, and I'm watching. When she complains, I'll be smiling. I won't let her drop out. It is not her turn. So now I talk about health. Health is important. You are never going to succeed in life without good health. Over the years in banking, where you have to wake up early, you have to go to work, you have to eat junk food, you have to skip meal, sometimes I developed high blood pressure. I didn't used to be sick until sometime I was now in and out of the hospital. Then I asked the doctor to check, and they checked and said I I was having challenges with my BP, and my BP had risen. It was a bit of a surprise to me because I thought I was doing okay. Now, but it wasn't the fat of the BP that was my problem. And I was advised that to overcome it, I had to change my lifestyle. So I said, well, this BP, you have chosen the wrong candidate to attack. That's over 15, 20 years now. And I said, okay, fine. What am I required to do? Make sure you exercise. Make sure you change your meal time. Make sure you drop some meals and do that. And from that day to today, I have maintained a very strict regime managing my health till at some point when I was even a vegetarian, although I have scaled that back a bit. So whatever happens to you, whatever you experience in life, it is your reaction to it that matters. And I am as much in good health today as anybody out there because I have chosen not to allow that to bother me. I have never gone on admission for BP challenges because every day I wake up at an appointed time. I go to do my workout for 2 hours and I mind what I eat. I mind when I eat it. I mind what goes into my mouth. I exercise. But good health is beyond exercise and what you eat. It is an all round thing where you have to decide. If you go work out and you don't sleep properly, you have merely sabotaged it. If you go work out and you are quarrelsome, both at work and at home, you are sabotaging it. If you go work out and you are not at peace with your neighbors or with your God, you are sabotaging it. So it is a full circle that you must maintain. Health is not one portion, it is exercise, it is food, it is rest, it is peace of mind, it is spiritual, it is mental, it is emotional. So you have to keep all of those. And unfortunately, to maintain your health is a lifelong project. It is not 1 year, it is not 2 years. You must maintain it all your life. So let's get into more into the deeper work life. Next slide, please. Now, I talked about taking the road less traveled. Now, taking the road less traveled means you're going to encounter challenges all the way as you go. And it means you cannot settle for things that look interesting, exciting at the very point. You must build trust. Now, when I talk about building trust, one experience stands out for me very clearly. I'll talk about the top three experience, then I'll talk about an experience that one of the fellows here knows very well. The top three experience, when I was a young banker at Aba branch of Diamond Bank, I picked a check that was a blank check, signed by the customer, blank, without any name, undated and signed. And I just said, If I just put my name or put any name I wanted on this check, it was going to be paid. And this was very several years back, and that check had nothing written on it, and I knew the customer's balance. I could have written any amount I wanted on it. I could have been paid, either through naivety or probably my upbringing. I took the check, showed it to my manager, then who has reason to be an MD of a bank subsequently. He looked at it and looked at me, said, "Did you know this check was signed and there's no amount, no name, no date?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You could have put any name on this." I said, "I know, sir." He said, "Are you a fool?" I said, "No, sir, I'm not a fool, but it is not my property." He called the customer. The customer came and he told the customer what happened. The customer said, "Wow, okay," that he was looking for that check and he didn't report it as stolen. So he said, "Okay, fine. From today, I'm going to appoint Mr. OC in charge of my account." The manager said he's not a salesperson. He can't manage your account. He said, "I want him to be the person in charge of my account. Any check he says pay, please pay without question." So it became clear to me that you have to earn people's trust. And I managed his account until I left that branch. In the next slide, I will share some other experiences where the opportunity to make easy money or to get on in life were there, but I chose not to take them because my early upbringing did not warrant that. I talked about my encounter with Pascal Dozier. Pascal Dozier, for those who don't know, was the chairman of the promoter of Diamond Bank and was the chairman. Then in my early days, I used to criticize a lot. I would criticize. I knew everything. I knew how everything was supposed to be done. And nothing was okay for me. And I would criticize, complain, say, this bank is not being properly run. This is how this bank should be run. One fateful day, I got into the lift. The lift opened and Mr. Pascal Desir was there alone. And we were just the two of us there. And he said, "OC," I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I heard that you're always criticizing the bank that is not being properly run." I didn't answer. He said, "Okay, so I'm giving you the opportunity today. You are now the MD of this bank. Tell me 4 things that you will do to make the bank better and more profitable." That was like a shock from the blues. I didn't know what to say. All of those things that I used to criticize and complain, I had the view of how things would be done. They simply just disappeared. I didn't know how to run a bank anymore. He looked at me, said, "I'm waiting." I didn't say anything. I opened my mouth, I closed it. When the lift got to the floor where we were alighting, he said, "I hope you have learned your lesson today. It is not very easy to run a business or any organization. It's easy to criticize, but when it is in your hand, you wouldn't know what to do, or it's not as easy as you think from outside." From that day, I became less vocal, I became less critical. I now realized that it wasn't just talk. You just had to match your talk with your words. Now, the overcharged customer, why was this important to me? Again, it had to do with Mr. Pascal Dozier. In those early days, we tried to run a bank that was as good as we could. But we noticed that one customer was overcharged with a significant amount. And we, the young officers, were very happy that we had earned more money than we could. So, but we needed somebody to sign off for us to move that income, quote unquote, into the books. We took it to Mr. Pascal Dozier to sign off. He asked us what happened. We told him. He said, "You overcharged the customer and you are bringing to me to sign off. so that you will take it in as income. We say, we didn't know. It was not deliberate. Said, no, this is not the organization we want to run. You will write to this customer, tell the customer that they were overcharged and you are going to credit them with a value. We looked at each other. It didn't make sense because we were young. But looking back now, that left an indelible impression on my young mind. You must not take what does not belong to you. The customer is doing you a favor. Do not place him in a situation where he gets cheated just because he's doing business with you. And that guided me all through my life in the banking time. I always looked for who everybody should get what they were due. I wouldn't allow you to take my cover and I wouldn't take yours. Again, the declined loan. That was another encounter with Mr. Pascal Dozier. He referred me to a customer and I went there. The customer wanted a loan, but that loan didn't meet our criteria for giving loan. And I just declined it outright and came back. The customer called him to complain. He called me and I just said, it didn't meet our criteria. Say, what did you suggest the customer to do? I said, nothing. He said, what is the mission of the bank? I said, to come up with creative solutions with the customer's financial problems. Say, did you live up to that? I said, no. Said, then you were wrong. Find solution and go back to the customer. We did. And we're able to lend to that customer. I just knew from then that whatever was written in the book is not necessarily what you would do. Now, my forceful induction into the training academy, I was born a stammerer, and I couldn't just imagine myself being a teacher. But one fateful day, the training school called me one Friday evening that somebody who was supposed to facilitate at the training program was not available, that I should come in to do training, to lead the class. I was scared and I wouldn't want to do it. I did everything I could. They begged me that you have to come. I did. I went through it. I survived it and I did very well. And I was inducted into the training academy. And that was when my relationship with the training academy and training schools commenced and continued till today. When I introduced myself, I say I'm a teacher. And that was that fateful day when I was brought into it. Now, I had a mentor when I was in the bank, and what I used to do was go to the library to see what book he was borrowing, and I would put my name down and said, once he finishes, please, I would like to borrow this book. I started building up my library by borrowing the books he used to read. I was imitating everything he was doing, and I was developing a reading culture. I have a library and I have a long list of books, and I'll be willing to share with anybody whose reading habit matched mine. Next slide, please. So for maturity experience, when I started managing at the beginning, there were some experiences I will share now. I had requested to be posted to a branch, and I was given a branch, Matori branch, for anybody who knows Matori branch. It was not an ideal branch in terms of location because of the nature of job that was there. But when I got there, I thought I was a big boy as the manager, and I wasn't supposed to do anything. So I would sit in the office, send my people, and they wouldn't do any work. They would come back and I would scream and shout, and the branch was not growing until I realized that a leader must lead from the front. You cannot just deploy people to go and do your work. You must go out there to be seen to lead. It's only when the people you are leading see that you are also doing what you're asking them to do that they will go out to do the job that you have asked them to do. I said I was going to share an experience. In my time in FCMB, I had the opportunity of at one time of being the acting ED of one of the divisions then, or one of the directorates. And it happened to be a time when the bank was doing promotion. Typically, the promotion list will be sent to the EDs to review and make recommendation. That list that was sent to me as the acting ED had my name on it. Then we had budget constraints. And if I allowed myself to be promoted, then I would have eaten half of the budget. What I did, luckily, the ED, substantive ED came back and I told him, I turned over that promotion list to him to conclude. And he said, no, you will work on it. I said, no, sir. My name was on that list and I didn't want to work on it. He said, no, you will conclude it. I went back to him, said, I wanted my name taken off that list. He said, have you discussed this with your wife? I said, no. He said, go back and discuss with your wife because the decision you're making will impact on both of you. I went back, discussed with my wife that I didn't want my name on it. And she asked me why. I told her, she said, fine, I will support you. I took my name off that promotion list. And that level that I was recommended for promotion then, I never got to that level again until I retired. But I still think I did the right thing today. Difficult, but sometimes you have to take decisions that are important. For want of time, I will share one more experience. When I was moved out of Lagos to the East, I wasn't happy about it. I had never lived in the East, apart from my early days in the primary school, secondary school. My university was not in the East. My life after was not in the East. I kept complaining. I kept worrying until one of the courses or seminars I attended, I brought it up. And the facilitator asked me, what's your problem with going out of the East? I said, my family. And he said, let us do a graph on the board to check how much time you were actually spending with your family in Lagos. We did that. If you go out at 5 o'clock and come back at 12 midnight or 1 o'clock, how much time were you really spending with your family? I was shocked to find out that even though I was physically in Lagos, I was not really in Lagos. I was not physically here. So she said, you see, it is not the quantum of time that you spend, but what you do with the time. Go to the place they have posted you, but each time you are with your family, make sure that that time counts. And I took my lesson from there, and subsequently, I made sure that every minute with my family counted. And that's how it has been with me up to this present day. It may not be much time, but it is not the quantum, but the nature of it. Now, I retired from the bank in 2020, FCMB, and I'm on my own now. What I do today, I basically do financial advisory services. I'm into telecom, I'm into technology. I'm open to everything that I can see, and I can now see how all of those years that I have spent both in the seminary, in this university, and working has come to play. They were preparing me for today. And like I said, when you choose to walk on the narrow path, it is not what you gain from there is what counts. So I said I'll share some of the experiences I have learned over the years. I have already talked about them during the period I was narrating this. I say be clear what you stand for, because people will always want to sway you to other things. Decide early who or what you want to be. Do not seek privileges. Serve. Nothing is beyond the determined man. Whatever you set out to do, If you really mean it and focus on it, you will achieve it. Everyone needs someone to look up to, like the priests who were my early mentors in those days. Create times for the things that matter to you. Your career is in your hand. A sound mind can only be found in a sound body. You have to exercise, you have to look after your health. Build meaningful relationships. The relationships that I use today are those I met over the years. And family is key. And finally, I say, it's all going to be as the Lord will it. Unless you put God at the center of your life, nothing is going to work for you. No matter how much you struggle, if He doesn't say this is what you will be, you will never be. You can do all your preparations.
All right, a big thank you to Mr. Oliver Opara. That was a very, very impactful session, and I did learn a lot. He spoke about you have to work hard and be honest to succeed. He gave he explained his childhood upbringing, and choosing a life partner isn't by looks alone. He talked about sacrifice in marriage, how you have to like sacrifice something to make time in marriage. And he also talks about how you should pray that God shows you your right partner, and making time for your children is also very, very important. He also talked about your reaction to situation is is what matters most times. And also he talked about his wife being the motivation behind why he finished his MBA. So we have to give her all the accolade that she deserves. That was very wonderful. So this goes out to all the wives. Support and be there for your husband. And he also talked about health, and how health is beyond just exercising and looking good. Talked about how health is spiritual, is also emotional, and health is peace of mind. So let's keep that in mind, that health is not just about looking good and then being fit. It's also spiritual, emotional, and it's also your peace of mind. He also talked about being disciplined at all times. He made mention of how he saw a signed check, and instead of taking advantage of it, he went and gave it to his manager as a disciplined man. So as all times and at all times, and as um humans, we should not take advantage of other people. And he also talked about not taking what is not yours. So this session was definitely very, very important and very impactful. So thank you so much, Mr. Oliver, for shining your light and giving us insights into your life experiences. That was very, very, very thoughtful. So apologies for the network issues. There's his network is a bit bad, so I'm sure he'll come in anytime now for the question and answer session. If not, you could drop your questions in the comment section on YouTube, on IG. Very, very impactful. So we can take it and ask Mr. Oliver when he joins back. So, and you could also drop comments for him, good comments. You could drop what you learned while we wait for him to join back. All right. So I think his network is really bad, so we'll have to end the session for today. Thank you so much to everyone for joining today's session. Thank you, Mr. Oliver, for that impactful session. It was I'm definitely grateful. It was very, very much needed, and a lot was there to be learned. And also, thank you to everyone who joined today's session. You can follow us on all our social media platforms. On IG and YouTube is at Trustees of True Riches, while on Twitter is at Trustees of TR. So that is spelled TRUSTEESOF, caps lock T and capital R. Thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend.